You paid every bill on time, you never missed a single payment, so why exactly did your credit score just drop 20 points overnight? It is arguably one of the most frustrating things in the modern financial world. You are doing absolutely everything right, you are playing strictly by the rules, and the algorithm reaches out and punishes you anyway. I'm going to show you exactly why that happens, and spoiler alert, it has absolutely nothing to do with whether you are actually good with your money. Today, we are looking at the hidden timing rules that systematically penalize highly responsible people. We are skipping the generic internet fluff, and we are looking directly at the real numbers. I am talking about statement dates, utilization bracket cliffs, hard pull half-lives, the early payment paradox, and the mathematical reality of what actually moves the needle on a FICO 8 score. I want to show you the massive difference between being financially responsible and being algorithmically optimized. Because right now, millions of people are optimizing for a completely fake scoreboard, and it is costing them heavily. Before we break down the brutal math of the FICO system, let me just say this. If you want the absolute best return on investment for your time today, hit the subscribe button. We do not do hype here, we just run the numbers and protect your capital. Now, the financial establishment loves to spoon-feed us a very moralistic, highly oversimplified narrative about debt. They tell you to never carry a balance, to pay your bills as early as humanly possible, and to never, ever close your old accounts. We have been conditioned from a young age to believe that a credit score is essentially a measure of our personal virtue and financial morality. Average Americans consistently conflate being a responsible adult with being profitable to a retail bank. But that line of thinking stems from an era when banking was actually based on a relationship with your local branch manager who knew your name. Today, underwriting is a sterile, cold, algorithmic process governed entirely by the Fair Isaac Corporation, better known as FICO. The algorithm is completely agnostic to your morality. It measures one thing and one thing only, which is default predictability. Because the core FICO algorithm is a closely guarded proprietary black box, we end up relying on free consumer dashboard sites to tell us how we are doing. You absolutely know the ones I am talking about. You log into an app on your phone, it shows you a bright, colorful dial pointing to green, and you feel great about yourself. But those free sites almost universally use VantageScore 3.0. That is an entirely different, highly volatile algorithm that very few actual lenders use in the real world when underwriting a mortgage or an auto loan. We are living in a society of consumers who are meticulously and obsessively optimizing for the wrong test. We operate under this fundamental false premise that if we just act like good people, if we clear our balances aggressively and pay days ahead of schedule, the algorithm is naturally going to reward us. But if we want to understand the trap we are caught in, we have to entirely strip away the emotion. We have to look at the rigid mathematical mechanics of FICO 8, which remains the undisputed industry standard for major lending. The very first mathematical trap is what I call the statement date versus due date mismatch. Here is exactly how the trap catches you. We are all taught that paying on the due date is the only metric that matters. But banks do not actually report your balance to the credit bureaus on your due date. They report it on your statement date, which is usually 21 to 25 days before the due date even arrives. Let us say you spend $2,000 on groceries and gas this month. You wait for the statement to generate, and then you responsibly pay off the entire $2,000 on the actual due date. You never paid a single cent of interest. You acted flawlessly on paper. But the bank already reported a $2,000 balance to the bureaus a month ago on the statement date. Your credit utilization spikes in the algorithm, and your score drops 20 points instantly. Think of your credit score like an attendance grade in school. The statement date is when the teacher takes attendance at 9 in the morning. The due date is the end of the school day at 3 in the afternoon. If you show up at 10, do all the homework, and leave by 3, you still get marked absent because you were not sitting in the chair at 9 when the teacher looked up. You have to manage the roll call, not just the homework. So, why do intelligent people consistently fall for this mismatch? It comes down to basic human psychology and something called action bias. We have a deep-seated psychological need to equate financial metrics with personal virtue. This triggers the impulsive desire to just do something in order to feel like we are in total control of our lives. Highly responsible people will log into their banking apps and pay their credit card bills multiple times a week. This behavior satisfies a very real dopamine loop. It feels incredibly good to clean up the dashboard, wipe the slate clean, and see a zero balance staring back at you. But that exact same action actively and mathematically sabotages your FICO score. By paying everything off constantly and clearing the board before the statement even generates, you are forcing the bank to report a $0 balance to the bureaus. You might logically think a zero balance looks incredibly responsible to a prospective lender. But mathematically, in the strict FICO environment, it is actually registered as a penalty. This action bias blinds us to how the machine actually reads our data. To fix this specific timing leak, we have to step entirely away from the morality of debt and begin treating this like a database management game. The very first step in what I call the optimizer protocol is to comprehensively map your snapshots. I want you to ignore your due dates for just a moment. Log into every single credit account you own and locate the statement closing date. Put those exact dates on a physical calendar or a digital spreadsheet right now. That specific day is the only day the algorithm takes a snapshot of your financial life to grade you. Once you know the snapshot days, you take back total control of the narrative that the bank sends to the bureaus. You stop paying blindly based on when you happen to get a paycheck, and you start timing your capital allocation to strategically optimize the snapshot. You are no longer reacting to bills, you are feeding the algorithm the exact numerical data it wants to see on the exact day it is looking for it. But knowing the dates is really only half the battle here, because what you actually leave on that statement balance matters even more. If you think the timing mismatch is frustrating, wait until you see what happens when you actually pay off your cards completely. Most people stop right here. They figure out the statement date, they proudly pay every single card down to 0 the day before, and they assume they have completely beaten the system. They log in a week later expecting a massive bump in their score, only to see it flatline or actually drop further. If you do that, you are losing points on the table every single month. Because conventional wisdom says 0 reported debt is the ultimate path to a perfect score. I am going to tell you that having a 0 balance is exactly what is locking you out of the 800 Club entirely. Let me show you the hidden algorithmic penalty that actually punishes you for being entirely debt-free. There is an incredibly common trap I hear all the time when I talk to people about their spending habits. People proudly tell me they pay their credit card off every single Friday, so they never owe anything to anyone. They use their cards solely for the cashback or the travel points, but they treat it exactly like a debit card. They believe this is the pinnacle of financial discipline. The standard advice tells us that showing 0 reliance on debt proves that we are inherently safe borrowers. We assume the algorithm looks at that clean 0 balance and flags us as prime candidates for the best mortgage rates available. But this is exactly where the disconnect between human logic and algorithmic logic becomes dangerous. When you pay your balance down to exactly $0 before the statement date, the bank naturally reports $0 to the bureaus. And this triggers what I call the early payment paradox, where doing the absolute right thing triggers a negative algorithmic response. FICO actually penalizes 0% revolving utilization. It creates a mathematical paradox where the person who appears the most responsible is graded as completely untestable. Lenders are like personal trainers evaluating your financial fitness. If you have $50,000 in available credit and you consistently report $0 of use, the bank does not think you are financially strong. They just think you never go to the gym. They cannot evaluate your repayment muscle unless they actually see you lifting a small, controlled weight. Let us look at two different consumers. Consumer A spends $5,000 and pays it to zero before the statement date. The algorithm reads them as inactive, and their score sits around 740. Consumer B spends $5,000 but pays it down to $10 before the statement date. The bank reports a $10 balance, which is essentially 0.1% utilization. Consumer B then pays that final $10 before the due date, never paying a cent of interest. Their score is 765. The algorithm reads them as active with highly controlled use. But you have to be careful with how much weight you lift. FICO scores utilization in rigid brackets or thresholds. Quantitative testing reveals hard drop-offs at roughly 8.9%, 29.9%, 49.9%, and 89.9%. Moving your utilization from 2% to 8% does not drop your score at all. But crossing that 8.9% cliff to 10% can cause a sudden 15-point drop instantly. The reason people panic about utilization and compulsively pay down their cards is because they are caught in a massive gamification trap. Credit monitoring apps are not actually designed to improve your wealth or your stability. They are highly optimized lead generation engines built for credit card affiliate marketing. By showing you the highly volatile Vantage score instead of your real FICO score, these apps intentionally induce panic. The platform mathematically engineers a 15-point drop just because your statement balance randomly increased by $100. You log in, you feel a sharp spike of anxiety, and immediately you are presented with a targeted advertisement for a debt consolidation loan or a brand new premium credit card to fix the problem. The anxiety is the product, and the card offer is the monetization. Credit Karma is just a thermometer taped to the outside of your house. It swings wildly with every gust of wind, and it is meant to make you react emotionally. FICO 8 is the thermostat inside the house. It calculates the historical average and moves slowly, deliberately, and stably. You have to stop reacting to the thermometer. To safely navigate these utilization brackets without triggering the zero penalty, we use a methodology called the All Zero Except One protocol, or AZO. Here is how you execute it. You pay all of your credit cards to exactly $0 before their respective statement dates, except for one single card. On that one specific card, you leave a micro balance of $10 to $20. You just need to mathematically ensure it is between 1% and 8.9% of that specific card limit. You let the statement close with that tiny balance. The algorithm receives the exact data it craves. It sees that the consumer is actively using credit, but the utilization is safely sub 9%. Then, you simply pay that remaining $20 before the due date to avoid all interest. Now, knowing the math is one thing, but tracking all these dates and brackets across multiple banks can get extremely messy. That is exactly why my team built Cash Class, the official Tom Talks Money web application. It is the perfect bridge between learning the math and actually executing it. There are no invasive bank logins required. You just upload your CSV statement, and the web platform helps you visualize your cash flow and optimize your timing effortlessly. It even includes our free Budgeting 101 course to get you started. You can start your 14-day free trial on the web right now by clicking the link at the very top of the description. But optimizing your revolving credit cards is really only part of the FICO pie. Because there is a massive trap hidden in the other type of debt, and it catches the most responsible people completely off guard. We are going to talk about why finally paying off your car, your student loans, or even your mortgage will actually wreck your score in just a minute. It completely defies all common sense. But first, we need to fix a major leak in how you handle your credit limits and your oldest accounts. Because doing what you think is the conservative, responsible thing here is likely costing you points and forcing you to micromanage your money every single month. Let us look at the math behind credit limits. A lot of folks tell me they actively avoid asking for a higher credit limit because they are afraid they might be tempted to spend it. They keep their limits artificially low as a form of forced behavioral budgeting. That is a completely valid behavioral concern if you struggle with impulse control. But mathematically, keeping your limits low is a massive unforced error in the FICO system. We also see consumers refusing to close predatory, fee-heavy starter credit cards because they are terrified of ruining their average age of accounts. You got a card 10 years ago, it charges a $99 annual fee, gives absolutely zero rewards, but you keep it open just to anchor your credit age. We are paralyzed by the fear of our score dropping, so we accept low limits and we pay the loyalty tax. We pay annual fees for a decade on cards we mathematically do not need, just to appease the algorithm. Let us break down the actual math of limits and history. Utilization is just a simple fraction. It is your total balances divided by your total limits. You can lower your utilization by paying down debt, which is optimizing the numerator. But that costs you actual cash out of pocket. Or you can optimize the denominator by increasing your limits. In a high inflation environment, artificially bloating your denominator dilutes your utilization ratio without impacting your cash flow whatsoever. If you have a $1,000 limit and you spend $500, you are at 50% utilization and your score is tanking. If you have a $10,000 limit and spend that same $500, you are at 5% utilization, sitting safely in Tier 1. Furthermore, the hidden reality of account age is that under FICO scoring models, a closed account in good standing continues to age and contribute to your score for exactly 10 years. You do not lose the history the day you close the card. You are paying thousands over a decade just to protect a metric that inherently protects itself with a 10-year sunset. Then we have the installment loan penalty, which triggers some of the most visceral frustration I see in personal finance. This one feels incredibly unfair. You grind for years, you finally pay off your car loan or your student loan. You are celebrating this massive milestone. You log into your credit dashboard expecting to see your score skyrocket, and instead, it drops 30 to 40 points overnight. It feels like a punishment for success. But remember, the algorithm is agnostic to your joy. FICO heavily rewards a credit mix, which makes up 10% of your score. They want statistical proof that you can handle both revolving credit, like cards, and installment credit, like fixed loans. When you pay off your only active installment loan, that account is officially closed. The algorithm immediately removes the active installment data from your profile, reducing your demonstrated credit mix. And while we are talking about applying for or paying off loans, we have to mention the hard pull half-life. A hard inquiry stays on your physical report for 24 months. However, it mathematically only affects your FICO score for 12 months. Furthermore, if you are shopping for a mortgage or an auto loan within a 14 to 45 day window, the algorithm mathematically deduplicates those pools. 10 pools count as one pool for scoring purposes. The optimizer protocol for limits and loans is systematic. First, you implement credit limit increase farming. Set a calendar alert for every 181 days. Request a credit limit increase on every card you own that allows a soft pull, like Amex, Apple Card, Citi, or Discover. By artificially inflating your total credit limit over time to $50,000 or more, a natural $2,000 monthly spend remains at a highly optimized 4% utilization rate automatically. Second, Once your limits are bloated and your statement dates are mapped, you execute float arbitrage. In an environment where interest rates are sitting around 5%, cash has a very real opportunity cost. Paying a $5,000 credit card bill 20 days early costs you mathematically. Instead, keep your spending cash in a high-yield savings account. Wait until 2 days before the due date, which is long after the statement date has reported that optimal ASIO balance. Then, pay the bill. You keep the 20 days of yield, the bank gets paid on time, and FICO registers perfect behavior. If you want to permanently master this system, you just have to anchor yourself to the FICO 8 waiting pie. Payment history is 35% of your score, and amounts owed, or utilization, is 30%. That means a massive 65% of your entire score is completely dependent on just paying on time and strategically manipulating your utilization denominator. Stop treating credit like a moral reflection of your soul and start treating it like the sterile, emotionless database it actually is. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. If this systematic, numbers-driven approach makes sense to you, I want to invite you to click the Join button right below the video and become one of the optimizers. Channel members get priority comment replies from me, custom sketch badges next to their names, and it directly supports the independent, deep dive research that goes into these mathematical breakdowns. It is the best way to keep this channel focused on the brutal math. We covered a massive amount of ground today, from the early payment paradox to the ASIO method to the realities of float arbitrage. But the algorithm is always evolving, and the raw data points we gather from this community are incredibly valuable. I want to hear your real-world data in the comments below. Have you ever paid off an auto loan and watched your score unexpectedly tank? Have you tested the 8.9% utilization cliff on your own profile and seen the drop? Drop your experiences down below. It acts as vital peer review for everything we discuss here and helps everyone in the community optimize faster. Do not forget to check out Cash Class in the description to start automating your statement timing and cash flow. Until next time, keep your denominators high, keep your statement balances low, and as always, thank you for running the numbers with me.